elementary coffee roasting station. Camp stove that I hadn't used in 20 years. Fueled by propane. Very, very simple. This is a stovetop popcorn popper. The original I had, a Whirly Pop, had gears up here, but the heavy use of popping ground those gears up, and so it didn't work well. But I found this one, it's a direct drive. There's no gear involved, it's direct drive, and the purpose of that is to contain the heat and to keep the beans moving constantly. This is a Costa Rican bean. Costa Rica produces very good beans, and I roast about 3 cups at a time. And so this is actually just the end of the bag, and so let's easily get 3 cups, okay, and then we'll just get that in there. These are Arabica beans. They're Robusta are very inexpensive, lesser quality. These are Arabica, and grown, I like them when they're grown at 5,000 feet or more. Central America, South America, Ethiopia. Anyway, we just get the stove lit. First thing that happens in the roasting process is the moisture. All the vapor comes off, and it's a very white smoke, and it smells like hay or grass as the bean gives up its moisture, begins to dry out. And that process takes anywhere from 5 to 6 minutes as the bean changes from the green color to a yellowish color as it begins to dry out. And the temperature is increasing, and the vapor is coming off. The bean temperature is about 260 degrees, and so it's warming up nicely. The goal is to get it to 380 degrees. The bean needs to be at 380 degrees. But you see the vapor coming off. 290 degrees. Infrared thermometer is very helpful to track the temperature of the bean. It's not really as accurate as the thermometers on big roasting machines because there's a lot of variation in the temperature inside the container, but it gives you a good approximation of what the bean temperature is. 300. Bean has changed colors to a more yellowish. And it has already expanded in size. As the moisture comes off, the bean expands. Very important to keep the beans moving at all times, because if the bean doesn't move, it burns very quickly. $330. In fact, I heard a crack. That's an outlier. The outlier is one that just for some reason cracks very early. But we're getting very close to the temperature of first crack. $330, in fact. Yeah, it's we're at first crack. And at first crack, the color of the smoke begins to change from a white color to a more yellowish color. Yes, perhaps you can hear the sounds of first crack. Oh, we're at a very good first crack. And the temperature, (360). So this particular bean must go to first crack a little bit early, but just so you get it through first crack, as the temperature begins to cause chemical reactions inside the bean to change, to develop the flavors. We're getting very close to second crack. The sound of the second crack is more like Rice Krispies in a bowl of milk. It's a very much more quiet crack. And at that point, the bean is really developing its flavors, and it's getting to the point where we have to be very careful because we don't want to over roast at this point. Oh, you can see the color of the smoke, and the sound of the second crack is very distinct, and I think we're ready to. And then it has to be cooled quickly to stop the roasting process. And this is the best way I have found to cool it. You just let the air cool it as the bean falls. And you can see the beautiful color of the bean. Yeah. If we didn't cool it, the bean would continue to roast. It's the chemical reactions inside the bean produce heat, and the bean just roasts and roasts until it becomes very dark. And then it becomes dark and dry and very espresso-like. And if you like that, you can roast it at that level. But a nice dark roast is what we prefer.
What's coming off of the bean?
Oh, and the chaff. The outer skin of the bean doesn't add any flavor, and so the bean sheds that skin, and it's called chaff. The chaff comes off. This particular bean doesn't seem to have a lot of chaff. Some chaff is very apparent. It'll just cover the ground when it comes off. And I think we'll just set this aside and let it cool and begin to put it in bags. The bean really does not develop much flavor until 24 hours after it's roasted. It has to be kept in a bag that lets the CO2 gas which comes off the bean get out, but not let oxygen get into the bean, because oxygen will destroy the flavor. And so the bags have a one-way valve. It lets the gas that comes off the bean get out, but it prevents the oxygen from coming into the bean. And we're almost at the point where we just let it cool and get it in a bag, and tomorrow morning this will be wonderful coffee. I particularly like the Costa Rican variety. And then on the bag I make notes of the roasting date and the exact bean that I'm roasting. This is Costa Rican. That's very pretty. A very pretty roast.
Where's that valve?
Oh, the valve is right there. When you buy coffee in grocery stores, if it's a specialty coffee, it will have those valves in it. It lets the gas come off, but it prevents the oxygen from getting to the bean.